Here's something a little bit different. If you were given your first experience of an electric car, would you want to drive it nearly 500 miles across the country? You've never driven an electric car before, you've never charged a vehicle before, barely even been in one before. Well, this is what I've just done to my dad. So I've got a Tesla Model 3 standard range that needs to go from our showroom here on the south coast of England, delivered to a buyer who's just purchased a car, and he lives in Edinburgh in Scotland. Well, my dad lives in Glasgow, so I've asked him to take this car for me. And we're going to video along the way his experience and his thoughts. What will somebody who's never driven an electric car before think of a journey from here to Scotland? And by the way, I'm going to tell him barely anything about the car. I'm going to give him the keys and the basic instructions of how to start the car and drive it, and let him go on his way and see what he finds that experience to be like. I don't think he's too phased, but I think a lot of people would be. So let's find out how that goes.
It's a chilly April morning and I have the use of this electric car for the day. Never driven an electric car before, so obviously a sensible person would take it for a short run. I'm going to take it to Glasgow in Scotland. Now, I started driving about 50 years ago, and petrol was 6 shillings a gallon and twin carburetors were pretty cool. Today we're going to try it with an electric car and see how we get on. It all seems pretty straightforward. The car sat-nav includes automatically the recharging points, so it looks like I'm going to have to charge 3 times on my way to Glasgow for 45 minutes, 40 minutes and 25 minutes. I'm taking a bike with me, but that proves to be not a problem. Just took the front wheel off and twisted the handlebars. There it is packed inside with the rear seats folded down. It's now 20 past 1. I've been driving since 10 o'clock. I've had a couple of short breaks, but this is my first charging break ever. But no difficulty at all. I didn't know where the charging station was, but the sat-nav did. Guided me straight here. You just reverse into one of these white bays, which is dead easy because the car has a camera on the back to guide you in. You go up against the black stop, you select the nozzle that matches the one on the car, and you stick it in the hole. When I arrived, the battery power was at 17%, and it tells me I have 40 minutes to have my lunch, which is just about right. So I'm going to sit here in the sunshine and enjoy my sandwiches. Been at the charging station 30 minutes now. We're already up to 87%, and I can continue my journey in 10 minutes. Car says I have enough charge to continue trip. So unplug it and put the nozzle back. Off we go on the next leg. Now arrived at Charnock Richard service area near Preston in Lancashire. I've driven here straight from the previous charge place in 2 hours and 20 minutes. Some delays due to roadworks on the M6, but no real problem. As you can see on the screen, the battery is still 30% full, but it wants me to charge for 25 minutes, a bit of a top up in order to get me through the next one, which is not until Gretna Green in Scotland. It took me 2 hours and 20 minutes to get here from the previous charge, and that's about far enough really for me to drive. I need a pee and a cup of coffee now. I've only got 20 minutes, so I better get a move on. I guess Tesla are making quite an investment in these charging stations. It's obviously prime real estate and quite a lot of equipment, even including their own substation apparently. Right, put a jumper on, been to the loo, had a little walk, had a panini and a large coffee. So it actually took me 35 minutes to do all that, which was longer than I needed to be here. I've got plenty now to continue the trip. It does say I could stay another 30 minutes to charge all the way, but I'm on 92% and I've been in Lancashire 35 minutes. That's probably long enough for anybody. So let's hit the road again. So here we are in Gretna Green services over the Scottish border, just under 2 hours from the previous charging point at Cholton Richard. Raining obviously, and I'm going to need another jumper on before I get out. The car is saying it's still at 30%, which is very good. but it wants me to charge for 15 minutes in order to get home. Otherwise I'd be there with minus 20%. I may well be longer than that because I'm actually quite tired and hungry now. On the other hand, with Corona, I won't be able to eat indoors, and it's not really the weather for a picnic at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. We'll certainly put it on for 15 minutes. Of course, having the heating on whilst you're sitting still is one of the advantages of a Tesla. And I found at other places I stopped that quite a lot of the drivers were just sitting in their cars whilst their car's charged. This is the first time I've done it, but basically there's nothing else to do here. It's been raining outside and there's nothing in the service area. Now, I've got a notice on the screen saying this is a high usage supercharger station, which I think is code for they haven't got very many chargers, and it asks me to stop charging at 80%. However, since there's absolutely nobody else here at all, I'm not really hogging it by staying a little bit longer and letting it charge up to 100%. It's already on 96 now. For the last 30 minutes it's been telling me it's got 10 minutes to get to the charge limit. That's the first time it seems to have got that prediction wrong. But I'm not worried. I'm having a nice little relax and enjoying the heat in my back. And I'm quite happy to wait for probably another 5 minutes or so and then continue the journey. I've discovered a bit of a limitation on the navigation system whilst I've been here, and that is that you can only navigate to one place. The Tesla sat-nav will add the charging stations automatically, but you can't actually add your own waypoints, so you can't set your route that you want to choose or indeed set intermediate stops. Now, I'm going to Glasgow tonight and I'm going on to Edinburgh tomorrow, so it would have been quite nice to be able to ask the sat-nav what happens if I go to Glasgow and then Edinburgh. Would it be beneficial to get more charge at this station in order to save me a charge tomorrow? As far as I could tell, I can't do that. Generally speaking, the sat-nav is adequate. You can get various views of your route. You can zoom into where you are now. You can rotate it just by keep pressing that button, or you can zoom in even further by pressing that button, or you can stretch and grab and slide if you want to see more that way. So it does seem to be a limitation which they could solve if they integrated it with Waze or Google Maps or something like that. Perhaps they're already working on that. Whilst I was driving up through Cumbria, I had the opportunity to see the automatic windscreen wipers and the automatic lights working. I had them set on auto all the way. They were perfect. They always wiped at the right speed and had the right lights on. I didn't need to set that to manual at all. So Tesla's obviously strong on sensors. They also show on the right of the screen here, when you're driving along, a picture of yourself with the traffic around you, the lanes, and even traffic cones. I suppose that's a demonstration of Tesla's sensor technology. It doesn't seem to have actually any benefit over looking out the window yourself, although I believe there might be some collision avoidance. I didn't try that out. Now, play did actually work, but it turned off the video, so I can't really demonstrate that. What I will say is that the audio functions, play, stop, pause, skip track, skip back, did I say hold and off, they all work perfectly, but of course they're no use at all because pressing one button on the steering wheel and speaking the command is more work than pressing the other button on the wheel that does the function directly. Navigate to Edinburgh. Oh no, it is actually working this time. Last time I tried it, it said Edinburgh cannot be found. But it did understood it if I spoke it with an American accent. Navigate to Glasgow. As you can see, it's now giving me navigation to Costco. So I didn't understand Glasgow. Navigate to Glasgow. Now did it seem to understand my impression of a Scottish accent, but it didn't understand my English accent. Navigate to Glasgow. It did understand also my very poor rendition of an American accent. So slightly unreliable, and again it doesn't really do anything because, okay, it saves you typing in the word Glasgow, but it won't actually navigate there unless you confirm it, or if you don't want to navigate there, cancel. As it happens, I'm already navigating to Glasgow anyway. Navigate to Edinburgh. navigate to Edinburgh. I'm now at a place called Eurocentral, which is on the M8 motorway between Glasgow and Edinburgh, just outside of Glasgow. It's a slightly different location because it's not actually a motorway service station as such. It's actually on the edge of a large industrial estate called Maxim Park. Whether there are any facilities here, I don't know. I'll go and have a look, but there is a charging facility. So I'm going to give it a bit of a top up so I can deliver it to the customer with the maximum charge.
Thank you for delivering our car. Customer's very happy. So last minute change of plans there. Instead of the train, took a Tesla, your first drive in an electric car, and the first drive in a Tesla, of course, as well.
Yes.
And normally you don't really drive much at all. You have a bike to cycle around the city, so you tend to hire cars as and when needed, so it's probably the greenest way to be. But I think this was an interesting experiment because this was all about, of course, giving you a Tesla without telling you too much about it, and then driving it across the country up to Scotland to deliver it. So I deliberately didn't say too much or give too much instruction or guidance because I wanted to leave it to see how intuitive it would be for you and what it was like to get used to. So yeah, what's your verdict? What's your roundup of the experience so far?
Intuitive. What I'm sort of comparing it with is during the COVID lockdown, I have hired cars to do that trip. Mm-hmm. I had a Ford Cougar and a Kia Sport, mm-hmm. and a Nissan Qashqai, so all like small SUVs. Yeah, very comfortable and had some of the features. Mm-hmm. It wasn't my intention to do a specific comparison, but that's just a background of the kind of thing I was expecting. Yeah. When you rent a hire car, of course, it's always an unfamiliar car, so it takes a while to get used to it. Mm-hmm. In the case of the Tesla, I found I got used to it quicker than most. Yeah. I found the controls very intuitive because there are only two stalks. Yeah. One of which is the drive, so that replaces the big T-bar in the middle of the dashboard. There's also no handbrake, of course, and the only other stalk is the turn indicators and the which also does the windscreen washing.
That's it.
Pretty much the same as in any car. Everything else is controlled from that centre panel.
It's very bare minimal, but did that feel like it was going to be more complicated or more simple as a result? I think they're more simple.
Well, I think they're more simple, and it's also easier to see because when I've picked up a hire car in the evening before now, you get into a car that's dark, so you can't see anything. Of course, in the Tesla, you've got that big screen, you can see it whether it's day or night, so you can actually see what's going on. There were very few cases where I was puzzled. In most cases, it immediately did what I expected, which gives me a lot of confidence. Yeah. And where it didn't, a little bit of experiment soon sorted it out for me.
I think it's fairly self-explanatory. So in the moment you drove away in the first half an hour, what did you find in that first instance you weren't sure of or didn't know what to do with the controls, first of all? I'll ask you about what it's like to drive in a minute, but after the first hour, what questions did you have, if you know what I mean? You think there's a way to do this, or I couldn't work out how to do this?
No, there wasn't really. I just sort of put it in gear and drove away. Slightly gingerly as you do, but after 10 minutes I felt completely at home in it. Yeah. The only thing I didn't manage to do immediately was to pair the Bluetooth on my phone so I could listen to music, which was very serious, and I think it was down to my phone anyway. Yeah. I pulled into a lay-by on the way and went into my phone settings. Yeah. It was apparently on set correctly, but anyway, after I fiddled with it, it did come on, and after that I had my music as well.
Off and on again, and it worked. Very good. So, did you think it was going to be, was it daunting, the idea? I mean, I've talked to you loads about how good electric cars and how good Teslas are, but was it a sort of daunting prospect that it was just going to be with electric and you'd have to charge on the way, and were you concerned that you wouldn't have anywhere or couldn't find it, or it would be difficult to use? Did you have an anxiety about it in the beginning?
I wouldn't say I had a terrible anxiety that it was going to break down and leave me in the middle of nowhere or anything like that. I didn't know anything about how you found charging points. Yeah. But of course, as soon as you showed me the screen and the sat nav, which gives you the charging points, it's all completely clear. Yeah. But yeah, the first big stop was for 40 minutes for lunch. I went back to the car after 30 minutes, and it said it was ready to carry on. Really.
Well, I think the point is really that the car didn't need any more stopping time than you needed.
No, that's right. It's essentially a 9-hour journey if you don't stop at all.
Yeah.
But of course, that never happens. I always need a couple of hours altogether stopping. And this was no exception. In the petrol cars, it's taken me 11 hours. In the Tesla, it also took me 11 hours.
Well, yeah, I mean, that sort of leads me on to the next point, really, is what did you think of it just to drive as a car? Because you're quite tall. I think they're quite well built for tall people and fit in comfortably, and you found it a comfortable car, because before, like I say, you've had typically sort of slightly higher up cars, but once you found your lumbar adjustment, which is the round button on the side of the seat, by the way, comfortable.
Yeah, easy to adjust. So I'm not only tall, but I seem to have quite long legs for a car, which is one reason I often get SUVs. Yeah. Tesla was fine. Even with the bike in the back, I could adjust the seats back fairly well.
Did you think of autopilot for keeping you in the lane? Now, that car has only got the basic autopilot.
Cruise control I loved a lot. Yeah. I just had it on all the time. It's kind of efficient to drive because it's always putting you at the right limit. I had it on a gentle setting, so I didn't keep accelerating or decelerating to make that up. Yeah. But I also set the distance between cars as fairly big, so I was going for a relaxed journey rather than a sporty one. Yeah. And it coped with that very well. It was better than other cars I've driven for the keeping the distance and cruise control because it doesn't cancel. It does cancel, of course, if you stamp on the brake, but actually you don't need to stamp on the brake because it's keeping the distance from cars in front normally anyway. So you only need to cancel cruise control when you're turning off into a service station.
That's good. So it seemed like, I think overall, if we summarise it then, is there anything you'd sort of say then as advice to new owners, or maybe someone who's of retirement age who's considering it but thinks it's going to be really complicated?
Well, it's no more complicated than any other car. If anything, it's like simpler. Pulling in and charging it. For a start, the sat-nav tells you exactly where to go to the charger, which it doesn't always do with petrol pumps. And then when you get there, you plug it in and walk away. So, if anything, it's simpler than plugging in a pump, selecting the right kind of petrol, waiting until it's full up, hanging it up, going to the cash desk and paying for it. You don't have to do any of that.
You drive another electric vehicle, another Tesla, another day?
Yeah, I would get electric vehicles from the hire companies if they had any. So far, I haven't found anybody that rents one out.
Well, thank you again. Thanks for your feedback. Thanks for delivering the car.
Pleasure.
Cheers for that. We'll put together a little video. Thanks ever so much. I'll speak to you soon. So there we are. Even the smallest battery Tesla make, the standard range Model 3, 50 kilowatt hours-ish, is easy to travel across the country, even with somebody who's never driven an electric car before. And hopefully that proved just how simple the process is, and that realistically, the car usually needs to stop for less time than you do. So I hope that was interesting. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, where we post events and activities that we're up to on a daily basis. We'll keep making videos when the opportunity arises, so we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.